Prada, Fendi, Ferragamo, D&G Black, Club Monaco, Liberal Chanel, Femin Butch, African American Stacy Von Dutch, Asian Polo, Republican Gay, Gucci Louis, Givenchy Lancome, Valentino SGL, MSN, NBA, Latino Homo Moschino, Versace, Chloe Celine, Marc Jacobs Straight, DL Donna, Calvin Haight, Banana a Slave, or Christian Dior. If you need more labels, just ask for more. I got bags, bag hags, Perla bags galore, Spicks, niggas, Coach bags, and so much more. I got Stella, Tiffany, Jill, and Cara. I got Vivian Westwood and Carolina Herrera. Check my Escada pressed next to my Klein. When asked who I am, I say that I'm fine. Cause no label's gonna stick to a fabulous mind. So twisted this nation, so just you forget it. Banana a Slave or Christian Dior. If you need more labels, just ask for more.
It's just, you automatically, if you say, oh, I don't identify with sexuality, I'm just a human being that likes to have sex, then you're gay. In anybody's book, because straight people don't say, I'm not straight. They make it clear they're straight.
I think that a lot of men who don't identify as gay can be in two-pronged. One, I think there are men, particularly in the West Coast, who don't identify as gay, who identify as same-gender loving. And their thinking is around that gay comes from a white construct. So since it comes from a white construct, as a black man, why do I want to identify myself in a white construct? And in actuality, black is a white construct. But that's another conversation.
So my take on the phrase MSM, or men who have sex with men, is really this pull back to the 16th and 15th century, where it's about men lying with men.
Like, I've taken on the label gay, and I've identified as queer and all of these other things that have been given to me as identifying terms through working in the community and working in the field. However, I know that a cousin of mine or a friend of mine or someone that I've dated who has no care of identifying as a homosexual or bisexual person, they might be on the DL or whatever it is, don't want to identify as MSM. So this identifying factor doesn't necessarily lead them to receiving services or getting services at a nonprofit organization to get tested.
Men who have sex with men was a term that was coined, if you will, by the Centers for Disease Control in order to identify behavior. Very few people that I know run around saying, I'm an MSM, I'm an MSM. And I think that the challenges around gay or same-gender loving or however men of color choose to identify is, again, complicated by the richness of one's experience. And I didn't wake up this morning and say, oh, I'm a black person. I didn't wake up this morning and say, oh, I'm a lesbian or I'm a woman. I woke up this morning as Marjorie, and that the intricacies of all my identities are those which I carry throughout the world.
There are men oftentimes who don't use the word gay to identify behavior. I'm on the DL, mean I'm on a down low. I don't identify as gay. I'm not bisexual, but I have this behavior with other men, and it's sort of sneaky. Because men who are truly on a down low don't call themselves DL. If you call yourself DL, then you're not on the down low, you're an announcer. And so the announcement of it is so contradictory to the label or whatever.
The difference with quote-unquote LGBT organizations or LGBT organizations of color is that there isn't necessarily a ready-made community to hold them accountable to.
Sexual identity is very complicated, as is racial identity or gender for that matter, and that oftentimes people gravitate towards the labels that speak to their particular forms of expression.
A lot of it's racist because you don't call white men who Brokeback Mountain were men on the DL. At least we didn't use that term for those kind of men, so there's sort of this racist kind of connotation with it.
Other times they pick labels because the folks that they emulate and identify with have those labels. At the end of the day, part of our coming into ourselves is really about finding out who we are and then living our lives.
I think DL is not only racist, it's sexist. Because we don't call women who have sex with other women who are married DL. We just don't use that kind of terminology. And if they do, they're not demonized for it. And because we live in a very misogynist sort of society, men find it very freaky, find it very sexy. We live in a sexist society, so women who are on the DL, or even lesbian women, are oftentimes connoted to have a more masculine power, even if they present feminine.
I think that there's women, particularly, that walk around the community every day, and we interact with them all the time. You know, I would say middle-aged women generally, who look like boys, and they have children, and their sexuality or their gender identification is never questioned. And I think that's always kind of been an aspect of Black life. That there's like these very strong Black women who, in many ways, are very masculine. Might not be homosexual or lesbian or whatever. Yet they exist in our communities all the time, and no one says anything. It's a fact of life.
I'm just a woman that loves women. You know, I don't really set labels for myself. I guess, you know, I don't know. I don't really set labels. You know, I'm me. I'm Roxanne, and I love the relationship I love the relationship that I'm in with another woman, and I take it for what it is. You know, I just go with the flow.
But society's giving you a name, whether it's MSM or people on the down low or whatever, it's society's influence of trying to define who you are. But I am the one who is going to decide who I am.
DL exists because of homophobia. If there was no homophobia, people would have no reason to be on a DL. That's plain and simple. And the fact that Black people are so unwilling to talk about systemic homophobia in the Black community drives men to continue to be on a DL.
Let's deal with the real issues. Nobody is talking about how do we eradicate homophobia and hatred within our communities. And that is what we have to start with.
Men who sleep with other men is not a risk factor. It's not an unprotected sex is a risk factor. So we continue to have this conversation that's mislead people to believe that because a man is sleep with another man, that's putting themselves at risk for HIV. No, if your man will sleep with another man with a condom and protect himself, you're not at risk. I think sometimes there's this mistake around believing that women, particularly Black women, are increasingly becoming HIV positive because of men who are on a DL. In actuality, my belief is that women are increasingly becoming HIV positive because women are taught at a very young age as girls to be powerless around sex negotiation. So when girls carry condoms, if they're carrying a condom, they're connoted to being a hoe or a whore. So it's always the boy's responsibility, and she's not supposed to articulate any kind of power conversation with the men around sex and suggest condoms, because then the men can turn it around and say, are you doing something? And also I think when you talk about HIV, it's interesting. I think Black women's perception of risk for HIV is very low because they believe that still is perceived as a gay disease. Black gay men's perception of risk around HIV is very high because that's the only thing we have conversation around with Black gay men is HIV, 46%. You know, all of the things we get around our institutions of belonging, around who we are, we're an abomination, all that other stuff, right? So we believe that it may be inevitable for us, or it's our predisposition. So our perception of risk of getting HIV is high, theirs is low. The flip side of that is their perception of severity is very high. If Black women get it, they're like, life is over, because as a community, not used to dealing with it. Black gay men, on the other hand, oftentimes, at first it might be something, but their perception of severity is very low. Why? Because it seems like everyone is getting it and everything else. And if it's predisposition for me to get, then it's not that severe because I'm expecting to get it. And even when I get tested and come out negative, my reaction may be, I'm lucky this time. And so this whole DL thing oftentimes put men who don't identify as gay in the middle of that conversation as if they're the evil sort of villain.